During our tour of southeast Oklahoma, we visited a site in McCurtain County where the native sable miner or dwarf palmetto was growing in vast thickets. Today we're in Tulsa to see how these beautiful plants perform in the landscape. And joining me again is plant enthusiast Wes Landfair. Wes, welcome back to Oklahoma Gardening.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here, Kim, and glad to talk a little more about the sable miner.
And we're at the home of one of your good friends, John Lotus, another palm enthusiast.
Yes, absolutely, and it's a great place to be, good place to take a look at a lot of different plants today.
And we've looked at these in nature. We were probably at a palm about this size. This is a beautiful specimen. It's been here quite a while.
Right, I think John's had this for about 20 years here in the landscape, and again, sable miner, in this case, is sitting in an excellent location in his landscape. We're on the east side of his home, under a large tree in a nice area where it'll get some sun but some shade, which, going back to what we found in McCurtain County, a lot of those were growing in dense shade, and some of them were even growing a little bit of sun and some full sun, but the bigger plants like this size were really getting a little bit of shade, which is exactly what this one's getting as well.
So we've seen up here in Tulsa that they can grow very well in the colder. It's a little bit colder here in the winter, but as long as we pay close attention to where we situate the plants in the landscape, they could perform beautifully.
Absolutely. The siting of it is very important, but this is a very hardy plant. Will do well in the Tulsa area.
Okay, and we have a few other palm relatives that are also hardy here in Tulsa. Why don't we take a look at some of these as well?
Okay, sounds good. Okay, Kim, another palm that we have here in the landscape is this needle palm, and the botanical name is actually Rhapidophyllum hystrix, and very hardy again, and it's a very nice example of one. There's several in John's landscape here. It's got that real palm-like leaf to it. This is a big clump type of a plant.
It's a beautiful specimen, very large, and again, this has been growing for several years. About 15 years, John had said.
Right.
I've seen several of these growing in Oklahoma City as well, in the landscape there, and I think you said they have some at the zoo. Let's look at why it's called the needle palm.
Excellent.
Kind of interesting down here.
Good spot to take a look. Down here in the trunk, these large needles are actually quite harmful if you want to get tangled up with them. But that's where it's going to get its common name, obviously. And then you can actually see just behind where I'm showing those needles, a clump of seed from this particular plant that had been produced. And it drops seed, and right in front of the plant, some small seedlings actually coming up down in here.
And this is a little bit different. When we looked at the sable miner, the seed stalks were long and very tall. And the seed stalks remain relatively low.
Right, held within the trunk of the plant. I'm assuming that is a protective measure from keeping anything from actually getting to the seeds because of the needles that are in here.
Well, Wes, both this needle palm and the sable miner both have sort of a shrub-like habit, but you also have a few trunking palms, and this one is a very nice example of that.
Yeah, this is for a trunking palm that's also considered very cold-hardy. This is a windmill palm. Trachycarpus fortunii is the botanical name of it. And this is really going to give that nice tropical large palm effect in the landscape and still be fairly hardy. Now, the homeowner will take some measures to protect this plant on occasion.
I can see we're protected from some of the winter winds. There's protection to the north and west.
Right. And on occasion, if it gets, let's say, down to 10 or below, the homeowner will also take other measures to protect this around the trunk and then in that center leaf there. That's going to be the most important to protect for the new growth of the plant.
Okay, that's our growing point. The new leaves all come out from that upper center.
Right.
And how would we go about protecting that?
A couple different things could be done, type of frost cloth or something to keep the center from getting ice, cold, real cold snow, ice, that type of thing. And then occasionally around the trunk, we'll go ahead and use things like insulation or trash bags filled with leaves that may have fallen in the fall, and we'll collect those and use them to help gather some warmth around the trunk.
Excellent. Now the other palms and palmettos we've looked at so far, they don't require any winter protection?
Not in this area, no protection needed.
there's another great plant in the landscape here that doesn't need winter protection, and it gives this beautiful tropical appearance. Of course, it's not a palm, but a hardy banana. This is wonderful.
Right. This is Musa baju, Japanese fiber banana, and this is very hardy here in the Tulsa area. In fact, it's really spreading and filling in quite nicely here, so it's thriving in this particular location. And this plant is all providing just 1 year's or one season's growth, 1 year's growth at this point.
That's really amazing that we could get these incredible heights and magnificently large leaves in a single season. So each year the stems die back to the ground?
Right. Once we get a killing frost, they'll come in, they'll start to droop, die back, and then the homeowner can come in and cut these off, at a certain point, and leaving that, take the rest away, maybe put a little mulch over it, and that's basically all the protection it might need for the season.
Then as soon as the weather warms up, we'll sprout back up and get another wonderful growth.
Correct, and grow quickly at that.
Excellent. Well, I know there's quite a few palms in the landscape here that are not winter hardy, but I didn't want to leave all those out. Let's take a look at a couple of those. Well, here we have a number of palms as well as other tropicals growing in containers. And this is another great way to add a little bit of the tropics to the landscape.
Right, yeah, the container gives an advantage because you can go to a plant that maybe not quite as hardy as those that we talked about in the ground and still give a great tropical feel to the garden. It allows somebody to move those plants around, maybe to catch a little more sun and things of that nature. But the container is a little bit different in that we're going to change our watering requirements. They will dry out a little sooner than the plants in the ground, that type of thing, so we will want to pay attention to that.
How about in the winter? Of course, we need to bring them out indoors because they're not hardy. What are some different ways of storing those?
Well, for example, the homeowner with these will take them into the garage. As long as they stay above freezing, really that's the best thing, and a little bit of light, so if there's a sunlight or windows in the garage that may allow some light in, that again is beneficial for the plant during that time.
But they can take fairly cold temperatures as long as it doesn't get down to a freezing temperature.
Right, long exposures of severe cold are going to do these in, but some cold temperatures will not really hurt them at all.
Well, wonderful. This is a remarkable landscape. I just love what John's done with all the tropicals, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
I was glad to be able to do it.